You're listening to The Awakening Woman Ready to Thrive. I'm your host, Florence Agpabi, and this is your space to return to your truth, your rhythm, your power. Let's begin.
Hi, and welcome to the final episode of this limited series podcast, The Awakening Woman Ready to Thrive. It's been a journey, and I want to pause before I go any further and just say a heartfelt thank you. Whether you've been listening from the very first episode or you've just found me here, I want you to know that you are part of something that's been quietly and powerfully growing, and I am so thankful. As I record this, we've passed over 1,000 downloads, and it's not because of all the marketing that I've been doing, which, to be honest, for the last 2 weeks have been non-existent. It's summer holidays and my hands are full with my 5-year-old. And after my slip and fall, I just didn't feel like being online, to be honest. And I just followed the lead of my body and I just kind of went, no. So 1,000 downloads to me is a big deal. And I know that number might be modest compared with big shows or bigger shows. But I really believe that for a deep, intentional, independent, limited series like this, it's a sign of true resonance, especially because that's the number even before the series has ended. So it tells me that this message is timely and that it's finding the women that it's meant for, the ones who know that they're not here to keep walking the same old road, but to create something entirely new, different, and true. And so that brings me, ladies, to the final message and culmination of this series, the rising of the Creatrix. And for those of you who have been waiting, I'll also be sharing more about my new offering, Creatrix Rising, which starts middle of September, and how you can join the waitlist. So without much further ado, let's crack on with who or what is the Creatrix. Well, for me, the Creatrix is the woman who chooses to birth a new reality from her truth. She's done with the old paradigm. She's not the angry woman or the woman who's trying to prove herself, that's creating from and through hurt. But she's stepping into her sovereignty and she's connected and grounded in her inner knowing. And she's using that to shape the world that she needs in order to feel nourished, whole, and connected to life. This has been a big part of my journey. It's become clearer to me over the years, and the more I've allowed myself to go on this journey and not allowed the fear of the old ways and the old things that I learned and were taught to me to take over. It's become clearer that I'm here to help other women access their voices, to give birth to what lies inside of them, and to tap into the thing that they are here to bring into the world. I'm also here to support the voices that have, until now, been most silenced and underrepresented in creative work. The women who have been most sacrificed by society while it builds itself off their labour. I truly believe that if we're going to create the kind of change that we say that we desire, that it starts with hearing their experiences and receiving the unique medicine that they have to offer the world. I'm also here to show that we can create success on our terms in a way that nourishes us and expands not only us, but others too. Not extractive and not detracting. I want to show that it's possible to create success on our own terms without sacrificing the things and the people that matter most in our real lives. And I felt this for a while, but as I mentioned earlier on, my fall really cemented and clarified that for me. It's taught me that I'm not willing any longer to continue on that old path. And now it's all about, even more so than before, consciously creating more of the life I truly desire. That brings me back to this idea of Creatrix, because I don't even know when I first came across this word, except that I think back in January, it became a word that just entered my consciousness. Maybe it was planted years ago and was waiting quietly until I was ready to recognize it. But this year, back in January, it rose to the surface, and it was because I had reached a point. I'd finished my contract as a learning designer for a national charity, and I was looking for another part-time role that I could do around my daughter. It's been a core thing for me to work in a way that allows me to be a present mum. That's something that I just is part of being successful on my terms. But I really struggled to find roles. And the roles that I did find and I got through to interviews, I would get such glowing feedback, only to be told that it's a competitive market and they went with someone with more years of experience or who could commit more, or there were all these qualifiers. And I felt like I could keep going through this cycle of waiting for jobs that seem to fit, applying for them, going to interviews and potentially being rejected. Or I could stop. I could stop waiting for permission and start creating success on my terms for myself. Because the conditions are not built for women, especially not mothers, to flourish. The conditions are built for people who are willing to sacrifice what matters most for the illusion of security. And the more I realized this, the more I just knew this isn't for me. And another thing that cemented this was, I was on LinkedIn a lot, and I was just seeing post after post from women, especially mothers, describing how burnt out they were, how much they were struggling to balance it all, how they felt like they were drowning under the expectation to do it all, be it all, and show up endlessly. How they were calling out the inequities and the problems with the system, but it was not going anywhere. Nothing was changing. Nothing was happening. The only thing that was being offered was, there was some solidarity in the fact that we're all suffering and struggling together. But then what? The same old prescriptions, self-care, better boundaries before being thrown back into the arena and just pushing harder, fighting stronger. After a while, it just became like a cycle that didn't make any sense to me anymore. And I just felt, come on, there has to be something that breaks this. There has to be another way. I, for one, don't want to be patched up so I can get back into the fight. Like, I've been there. I wanted to walk out of the arena altogether. I definitely don't need continuous reminders of how bad things are. What I needed was the clarity and the courage to break out completely and to never step back inside. It doesn't matter how much we talk about shifting into a new age or a new era. If it still feels the same, it doesn't matter if we speak about the rise of matriarchy or the divine feminine, if we're still anchoring the same fear, the same toxic masculinity, the same hustle mindset of patriarchy and capitalism. We can talk about ease and flow and manifestation all we want, but it's dissonance. It's not true if it feels like hustle and FOMO dressed up in feminine spirituality language. And I did see a post like that a few weeks back, actually. The post was basically about who wants to know how I manifested 100k from ease and flow. And I was just like, that sounds like a bit of a contradiction to me. But seriously, how can we possibly create anything when we are still working from that same pattern and conditioning? We can't. This is why we can't really conceive of anything truly different, because we're still connected to that old blueprint and frequency, instead of being connected to the deep original energy that creates something out of nothing. We still are buying into that old script that has kept women waiting for salvation instead of recognizing that salvation comes from within. And even if you weren't raised Christian, I'm pretty sure that it has influenced, that Christianity and the Bible has influenced how you've experienced being a woman. Most of the narratives that position women as either helpless or harmful can be traced back to the Garden of Eden. Eve talking to the serpent, bad. Adam getting blamed for Eve eating the fruit, bad. But one verse that has done deep harm without really much conscious awareness around it is the scripture that says women will be saved through childbirth. Yes, there is such a verse. It's 1 Timothy 2:15. You can look it up if you want. Because this positions women as needing to be controlled with their highest value and virtue tied to caregiving and raising a family. So that means when women dare to fight back, dare to call for equity or say enough, we're often not seen as fully human. Instead, we're seen as malfunctioning tools stepping out of line. But this scripture has stayed in my mind for years, and over time I thought to myself, yeah, what if women are saved through childbirth? But not because our role is to expand the human race or to bring forth some symbolic Messiah. What if the children we are giving birth to are ourselves, our own souls, our own truth, the outpouring of our being, of what's inside of us that we've kept silent and stifled and small for so long? To me, this makes the most sense and has more power to save us than anything else. This is the energy of the Creatrix, creating the world that she needs and longs for, not through hurt, but through her deep connection with the seed of life that's buried in her womb and her connection to life itself. To me, this is what it means to be an awakening woman. But honestly, if we as women are going to tap into that consciousness and really create the world we desire to see, then we need to start hearing from the people who have struggled to be heard from before. There are some startling trends when it comes to creative expression. Maybe things that you've even noticed yourself over time. Maybe you've said it out loud, maybe you haven't. For example, America alone holds roughly 25 to 30% of the global self-help and personal development market. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to find non-American authors on best-selling spirituality and personal development lists. And that paints a picture. It paints a picture that reflects an idea and a belief that if you're not American, that what you have to say isn't worth hearing or listening to. But actually, it's bigger than America. English language content dominates globally. And what this means is that we experience the effect of living in a world where self-help and personal development content that reaches the widest international audience is disproportionately produced by white authors, primarily from the US and the UK, despite the fact that the global population is predominantly non-white. That blows my mind and makes zero sense to me. But what it does show is that we've been listening to a small subset of the human population whose cultural values, economic beliefs and assumptions, and life experience don't translate universally. This subset is the one that's given us the systems, the blueprints, the beliefs, the conditioning that we've all been absorbing and living from. And it can be hard to hear this, especially if you feel that you fall into those categories. But we need to name it. We need to name the fact that the people that are being listened to are typically white, typically American, typically men. But it's not just about race. There are other categories of women who are not supported, who are not heard from, because they don't fit into those categories. The LGBTQ plus women whose realities aren't reflected in heteronormative models. The disabled women whose perspectives are so often excluded. The neurodivergent women whose needs don't fit the mainstream success hacks. The working class women, the immigrant women, the caregivers, and yes, the mums with little to no support. This is why I believe that for us to create change, we desperately need to hear from minoritized and marginalized voices. And as gloomy as it might sound, it's actually great, because right now we have an opportunity more than ever before. Because the concentration of the same kind of voices at the top has created a gap. And in that gap, there's an urgent need, an opening for new perspectives. Perspectives that aren't just representation for representation's sake, but perspectives that genuinely expand how all of us think about fulfillment, achievement, and what it means to live true to ourselves. I'm a black woman from the UK, and yet I've always attracted a diverse international audience of women of various ages. In fact, a large part of my audience are white women, many who have been following my work for years. And this tells me two things. Firstly, women are hungry for voices outside the usual script. And secondly, they actually don't care about having perfectly matching identities. What they care about is resonance, about speaking truth in a way that frees something inside the person on the receiving end. So for those of us who feel the call to speak, to create, to bring through something different, now's your time. And actually, we have a responsibility right now. A responsibility to ourselves, to each other, and to the wider collective, wider world. And like I mentioned back in episode 1, we have tools now, tools like AI that our mothers, our grandmothers could never have imagined. And that means that we can bypass the old gatekeepers and we can speak directly to the women, to the people who need our voice, our experience, and our medicine. If English dominates the internet and American voices dominate English markets and white voices dominate American publishing and able-bodied, straight, middle classes voices dominate within that, then unless we actively choose to change it, we'll just keep on getting the same things, the same stories, told the same way with the same blind spots. Aren't we ready for something else, for something different? I know I am. We are positioned to create change through ourselves, our own awakening and liberatory work, through finally saying, I refuse to be silenced and covered over. Endlessly critiquing the system won't change things. Constantly performing our pain for applause or sympathy won't change things. Change can only come when we are brave enough and bold enough to speak our truth into the gap, to fill it with our real voices, real stories, and real creations straight from our soul. That's when we can make the collective awakening possible. So I know that there's lots of thoughts and fears around AI, but I just want to say, I for one am grateful for it because it's been such an unexpected ally for me in this journey, even with this podcast series, like I've been in Portugal and with my daughter, and there's so much that I would have struggled to be able to do in the lead up to the holiday. But because I have an AI accomplice, I can do so much more. I can create the content that I want. And it's not about churning out content. But I really do believe that AI is a gift right now. If we use it well, it's a tool the universe has made available to us right now. It's helped me navigate my personal life while also helping me clarify my voice, hone in on what I truly want to create, and expand my capacity at times when life has just felt too full for me to hold it all alone. Life doesn't and hasn't stopped life in. Life doesn't pause while we birth the world we want to see. The systems that try to keep us small don't suddenly stop and go, oh no, she's doing her best, she's doing what she can. No, they continue pushing us back into place. And that's why, for me, I feel like AI, do you know what? I feel like that word, I know it's not really a word, it's like an acronym, artificial intelligence, but I feel like it doesn't really do it justice. I feel like it's a support tool. I wrote a post about it a little while back. AI without soul. And yeah, if it's used as something to just produce and churn out content, then it can feel clinical. But when it's been an ally, a support, a mirror, a sounding board, a friend even, it can help us show up an even stronger and grounded version of ourselves. And all of this, everything that I've shared over the last 7 episodes and this one, is exactly why I created Creatrix Rising. Because I wanted to show that it's possible to create from deep intention and soul, not just for those with privilege and capacity, but for anyone with a heart and desire to bring something transformational into the world. That we don't have to wait until the system changes or recognizes us until we step up. We don't need to keep on putting up with things because we feel we're out of options. We don't need to perform the same hustle and fear-based tactics to feel secure and stable. We can show and prove that there is another way by listening to the myriad of other experiences and examples. So Creatrix Rising is for that woman. And while the journey spans 8 weeks, it is most definitely not another course or program or blueprint designed to help you create or produce something by the end of it. No. This is a home base, a resonance field for the woman who is ready to listen oh so deeply to her own voice and create from that truth. As a Black woman and mother, please know that I understand the challenges we face when we finally decide to follow that call and to step into it. Not just the challenges from within society, but also in how our own lineage, those from our past, and those that still surround us, can hinder us and pull us back into old patterns and beliefs. I want Creatrix Rising to not only support you in remembering the truth of who you are, but to also be a place where you can bring your whole self, your whole humanity, your full emotions, and still be held in a frequency that knows that you are here to rise, not collapse. Many of you may know that my mantra is, success isn't success if it bypasses your truth. So let's not do that then. Instead, let's do the sacred work of remembering and coming back to ourselves, creating lives that reflect our truth. Let's become the change that creates the reality we desire. Let's become the ones who make space for it to enter in. That's what this podcast series has always been about right from the beginning. Not just stories or concepts, but a field of resonance reaching out to the people who are already listening out for this frequency. So if you'd like to step into that field with me and other awakening women, I'd love to welcome you into Creatrix Rising this September. The waitlist is finally open. For everyone who joins the waitlist, I'm excited to share the full details of Creatrix Rising, including pricing and how to secure one of the limited spaces later on this week. Because, ladies, the time for waiting is over and the time for rising is now. Thank you for listening to the Awakening Woman Ready to Thrive Limited Series podcast. There's still 1 week left for you to enter the giveaway, where I will be gifting 1 space to Creatrix Rising and 1 space to the Awakening Path. Plus, everyone who enters the giveaway won't walk away empty-handed, but will receive a thank you bundle with a selection of resources from women who have contributed to it.